Hi again then guys, and welcome to another Special Projects custom build, and this particular build is more of an engine swap build, if you will. Of course you can't do real engine swaps on Gran Turismo yet, but what you can do is take the spec sheet, in effect, of a certain vehicle and basically apply those specs to another car, of course, if that car can reach those specs. Now, in the case of this vehicle, basically the concept behind it is, what if you took a Shelby Series 1, which has a 4-litre supercharged engine, and then instead of that engine, you fitted it with a classic 427 or 7-litre Shelby Cobra supercharged engine, essentially making it a modern Cobra? Well, that's the exact question that this build is designed to find the answer to. Now, as far as the visuals go, I haven't actually changed anything at all, because it already looks reminiscent enough of the Cobra. It is essentially a modern Cobra anyway. We're just making it more authentic as far as the engine. So you could change the colour and the rims if you want to. I haven't bothered. So we'll go to the mechanical setup first, of course, and then we'll take it out on a track to prove the car's ability, either way, be it good or even bad. Now, as far as the specs go on this particular build, there are different ways of getting to the same numbers, of course, different parts that you could fit, or a different amount of power restriction that you could do. I'm not running 100% accurate specs, it's more like 99.5%, because we do have the exact same power, 485, but the torque is a fraction off. Now, you may be able to fit some other parts to get it to be exactly the same, but that's down to you if you want to try that. The way I've done it is 66.6 as far as torque. The original 427 Cobra has 66.4, so it really is a fractional difference. If you want to try and solve that and get it exactly correct, then of course that's down to you if you want to. But as far as the rest, I have uprated the tyres to Sport Softs instead of Sports Hards. You don't necessarily have to do that, of course it's down to personal preference. As far as suspension, I've dropped the ride height a little bit to 110 on the back, 105 on the front, springs to 625 and 7, dampers and anti-roll we've reduced a little bit to 2 all round, but of course that's still higher than stock, neutral camber, neutral toe, which as always, if you want to have some, go ahead and do that. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second, and the gearbox on this one is actually quite interesting. It gives you some options as to what you want to do. As far as the diff, I'll go for the lowest initial torque, highest acceleration and lowest braking. Again, it's down to you as always. As far as power, as I already said, we're running pretty close. 99.5% accuracy in effect. Now, I do have an oil change on this car, so if you haven't done that, you do need to. Stage 2 engine tune, sports computer, supercharger, of course you want the supercharger, and intake tuning. Then I've reduced it down to 92.3%. So, of course, there's a massive variation of things that you could do, different engine tune, exhaust tune perhaps, or different parts apart from that. So feel free to mess around if you want to, but of course you need to have that kind of cash if you're going to be buying everything. As far as the weight goes, this again is down to interpretation and personal preference, because there's no 100% accurate way of predicting what the weight would be. But what I've done is basically added 70 kilos, as you can see, to compensate for what the extra weight would be like with an original Cobra engine instead of that 4-litre supercharged unit. So I've added 70 kilos and I've put that 11% towards the front, because of course with that bigger, heavier engine, it is going to be slightly more front heavy. So again, you could change it if you want to, you could give it none. Of course, it's totally down to you, and it doesn't matter because it's not a replica in that way. Then for the gearbox, as I said, you've got a couple of options. Now, I am running the real ratios of the original Cobra, but the original Cobra is of course a 4-speed, not a 6. So I've developed it in such a way that it's designed to be used with a manual gearbox and only use the first 4 gears. Obviously, if you put it in auto, which is what I usually use, it will go on to use 5th and 6th. So it depends how accurate you want to be, because I envision this as being both an engine and gearbox swap. So, if you want to do that as well, you want to take your auto setting up to 249, which will then allow you to hit these individual gears, which as I said are the same as the actual Cobra. So for first you want 2.32, then 1.69, then 1.29, and then 1. Then 5th and 6th doesn't matter. You could go super long, super short, it makes no difference. Unless, of course, you want to use those. And then we are also using the final drive of the Cobra, which is 354. Now that's where you might want to change it. You could, in effect, fictionally swap out the final drive for a longer one, because if you keep it authentic and only use the 4 gears, you're only going to get about 155 miles per hour out of this thing. So it depends how accurate you want to be, especially if you're going to only use 4 gears. So as I said, there's plenty of room for variation there, and all that remains, of course, is to take this converted monster out on the track to see what it can do. Now, it pretty much goes without saying that this tune is more about fun rather than winning races, for instance. It's pretty close to the 550 pp level, so if you want to race it, say in seasonals or online, then technically you could, but I'm not necessarily going to guarantee any victories from that because it's not designed to race. If you use those 4 gears, obviously it does limit the top speed a lot, but of course it depends how accurate you want to be to the original Cobra, or if in effect you want to have the same engine but swap out the gearbox instead. Either way, I hope you have a lot of fun with the tune, and obviously there are plenty more on the channel if you're new around here. But that's it for this one. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.